Hello? Hello? Right, I think we're good to go, right? 2:20 was this. Yeah, we might as well make the best use of our time. Thank you for all coming. There are spaces on the front row, that's okay. First thing I wanted to do is, Frederique is next door talking, and she's probably got like masses of people. So I said we were going to make a lot of noise in here so she knows that we're here. So I don't know, after 3 we could do a big woo! Is that cool? Okay, 1, 2, 3, woo! Woo, 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 woo! Brilliant, thank you. Did you hear that, Frederique? Right, okay. Yeah, thank you for all coming. Today we're going to be talking about Lightning Web Security in general. And one of the key things is being able to synchronize components on the same page. We'll get into why the topic of the talk was a bit odd at one point in time. But yeah, first of all, thank you to everyone for coming, and of course the sponsors, and Hissam and Hagim for putting it all together for us. A quick bit about me. Actually, let me refresh my timer. There we go. This is me. I'm Todd Halfpenny. You can find me on most places on the internet at Todd Halfpenny. I'm the mobile technical architect at a company called Cadify, where we specialize in mobilizing Salesforce. We have a no-code mobile app builder. More interesting than that, I think, is that I'm one of the organizers of the London developer community. Really lucky to have such an amazing community in London. And also along with that, I'm one of the organizers of London's Calling, which is an event just like this. Woo! Who's been to London's Calling? Good question. Yeah! Who hasn't been to London's Calling? Why not? Right, you got to fix that. Yeah, in June each year, we put on a conference like this, and you should come, because it's brilliant, like this one. I'm a Salesforce MVP, and recently recipient of this sparkly number. But also, I'm the founder of something called Shirtforce, where we make, hopefully, funny T-shirts for the Salesforce and tech world. We sell them, and all the profits go to charity that you in the community decide which charity. Ah, I forgot something. I have made this one especially. I don't know if you know the reference. No? Do you know this one? I mean, I got it in French as well, and Arabic. Hey! Thanks to Hissam for translating. So if that's wrong, that's his fault. He's scuppered me. But yeah, thank you for all coming to this session. Of all the sessions in all the world, you came into mine. Yeah, we're going to talk about Lightning Web Security, synchronizing data across things, and lots of other stuff. We're going to talk about why it exists as opposed to Locker Service. Should you be using it? When you can use it? And some of the pitfalls as well. We're going to look at some tooling that will help you move to Lightning Web Security, or if you're using it, how it can assist you in your day-to-day job. We'll also be looking at some examples, which is where the fun stuff is, I think. And then, yeah, benefits, and there are some limitations, so we'll cover those too. But we've already got Locker Service. So a bit of a history about Locker Service. Salesforce realized that the way that you could create web components on a page, there was a level of security that wasn't really viable for Salesforce customers, right? They had to put something in place. So they came up with Locker Service to make sure that components couldn't leak into each other and basically cause you to have problems in security world. There are downsides to Locker Service, as you're possibly aware, which might be why you're here. You know that you can't get access to a real document object or element object. You can't access web APIs. And there's performance problems as well. Because of the way that Locker Service was written, it essentially has created a wrapper around lots of things you might just get access to. So let's say you want to go, oh, I want window.location, right, to get your URL. If you do that in Locker Service, you're going through a wrapper layer each time. Same with kind of local storage or session storage and all those things. The future. So I asked Salesforce, said, oh, what's happening with Locker Service now that Lightning Web Security is here? And they said, we are not going to enhance it anymore, but it will be maintained, which is good because lots of customers can't get away from Locker Service. But that's not true. What they told me was what they hoped would be true, but it's changed. And we'll come on to that as well. And so we now have this thing called Lightning Web Security, which takes a different approach to making sure that your component can't get into other people's components and vice versa, and you can't have that kind of security risk. And they've done this through a JavaScript sandboxing, which is a standard approach to how the rest of the web is taking this on as well. So not only are we not having to go through Locker Service's kind of performance limited way of implementing it, we're now using a standard approach, which is always good. And it's just as secure, if not more secure, but it gives you more as well. Like I said, it's standard space and much better performance because we're not having to go through these wrapper layers constantly. So every web component you have, every time you go through a call, you're not having to go through this pretend layer of the web. There are other benefits too. We're going to go into those. Most of those hopefully will be in the examples. And there are some things to consider depending on who you are and how you might be using. It's who you're developing for. So let's say you're an ISV. There are different considerations to as if you're an end user or a consultancy and you know the orgs you're going into. It is available now. Lightning Web Security has been around for a couple of releases, I think maybe 3? It's 2 or 3. But it's ever evolving, which is really good. And you should be using it where you can. Lightning Web Security is being turned on a kind of like a rolling basis by Salesforce. At the beginning, you didn't really have a choice when it came on. They were kind of analyzing your org, saying, oh, right, does this org have Aura components that might cause Lightning Web Security a problem? If so, we won't turn it on. That unfortunately didn't always work, and we have many customers who go, your app's broken. And we're like, did Salesforce turn on Lightning Web Security? Yes. That would be right, because it doesn't work yet. But anyway, and there are some tools now to help us on our journey. We've got 3 of note. There's the LWS console. Apologies for the poor graphic. It's a web page here where you can throw in lines of code over here, and then you can say, can you run this with web security on or Locker Service on? And it will tell you what happens. It's quite neat, it's quite handy, but there are limitations. You can't put in import statements in there, and also it doesn't always work, which is the worry. Right? So I've got 2 lines in there, not that you can see them. One says, can I have, I wanted to basically have an index DB, so a local database in the thing. Both lines work with Locker Service on or Lightning Web Security on. That doesn't happen in production, so I don't understand it. I've got to feed it back to them, really, but it's there, and most of it does work. We then have this tool called the distortion viewer. So at the beginning, I was saying that Locker Service wrapped up things, like would wrap up local storage, would wrap up the element object. What happens now is you've got, in your JavaScript, you've got access to these real objects, so you can really go into them. But when you ask them at runtime, dynamically, Salesforce are intercepting those requests and possibly making changes to make sure that they're secure. So you can't, for example, call the function exec and have it run in the global space. It will only run inside your sandbox space. So it's, that's what the distortion is. The distortion view is a web page where you can put in you can say, if I'm going to use window.local storage, does it have any distortions on it? And if so, how is it going to behave? So handy there. There's no search, which is odd. I mean, there's a list of, 100 or so, but you can't search for the one that you might be using. It's kind of more like, come here and read about them all, and then remember them. But never mind. The other tool that's available to us is a VS Code lint plugin, which is quite handy. I've got it installed here, and basically, I've written some code that's doing a fetch, JavaScript fetch, and here the ESLint plugin said, you can use fetch, but these other things are going to happen. And you can click through to the documentation, which is really good. I should say that. Yeah, so those are some tools that are going to help us. But what we really want to see is some good stuff, right? We want to see what we can do now. First thing we're going to look at is the access to the global objects. So this is things like window document element, and what we can do now that we couldn't do before, or in some cases, what we can do now properly without being hacky, which I know we don't all like, but we do it because we're devs. So this is an org. You can see I've got 2 custom components on the right, 2 custom components on the left, and each one does something different. And my friend Todd's going to show us what he can do. Todd, are you there? Oh, there he is. Hi, Todd. How are you? Yeah, good, good. Nice shirt. Yeah, that's a Shirtforce t-shirt. And that's an Einstein 1 hat? No, it's a Salesforce 1 hat from many years ago. We love to rebrand. And so we started a video stream in the browser just using standard JavaScript. We can take stills. We've had enough, Todd. So this is cool. So we're using some web APIs to get access to this. And that looked quite funky, right? Really, it's like 2 lines of code. We're just saying, can we have access to Navigator media devices, get user media? That's all I'm doing. And I'm passing it saying, oh, I want video. I don't want audio, because as you can hear from my voice, no one wants to hear this all the time, so don't do that. And that's it. And then we've got streaming audio. We can have stills. You can do what you want. And that's through access to these web APIs. The second one, let's copy that text, global object 1, and then in my other component, I'm going to just get the clipboard contents and put them out on the screen. I mean, you can do this, but you do it in a hacky way with XX and all this nonsense. But now we can get access to the real clipboard API that's a standard web API, which is much, much better. There we go. Again, we're calling the navigator object. Oh, clipboard, read the text, stuck it out. So less hacky, proper web API. And that's neat, right? I think, what else can we do in here? Oh, so because of the access to global objects, we can now import lots and lots of other standard JavaScript libraries that exist across the web. I've got one here that puts out tooltips that will react. So if I scroll up and down, my tooltips will be. But it could be a charting library, could be a date library, could be some canvas thing. And because with Lightning Web Security on, you get access to the real objects, a lot of the libraries that were written by people who have nothing to do with Salesforce now work, which is good. I mean, the support for the libraries has been going on as Locker Web Service, Locker Service kind of continued, support got better and better, but now we have kind of a much broader array of libraries that you can use, which is cool. So global objects, in summary, well, we've got loads of access to all sorts of stuff. There's so many web APIs, and the idea is that as web standards continue to evolve and we get new web APIs, hopefully with Lightning Web Security, you'll just get access to them as Salesforce developers. And that's going to be good. I mean, I don't know about you, but when the web does something and then Salesforce goes, no, you can't have that for another 2 years. Please, I want it now. But hopefully we will just have it. Some things to note, there's not complete parity on mobile. So if you're building things on mobile, you have to be aware that it's slightly different. You don't have everything. I mean, when I first read about this, I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing some cool Bluetooth stuff, maybe some WebRTC, maybe some, you know. No, you can't do that yet. But I don't see a reason why you shouldn't be able to. Salesforce just haven't yet put all of that in. I should note there's a module called Lightning Mobile Capabilities that you can import that does some things. Does anyone use that? Lightning, yeah, what sort of things does it do? I can't remember. Is it geolocation? Yeah. Oh, yes. Biometrics, yeah. So hopefully that stuff will become standard web stuff, and then it can disappear from here and we can roll on. So that's all really good. Next use case for a Lightning Web Security is the cross-namespace component use. So if we go back to Todd's video, so I've got global object 4 here that's going to generate me a QR code. Melissa, QR code generation. We're just going to do that now using Canvas, which is cool. But I'm just going to use the standard right-click, copy that image. It's quite blurry, but I'm going to paste it into a Google Doc, or Todd's going to paste it into a Google Doc just to show that that image is in my clipboard. And then I'm going to try and paste that into my little text component that at the top here. It says, unable to paste clipboard contents here. And there's nothing unusual about that, I suppose, apart from I wanted my component to not let you paste anything in there. Right? That was its job. And that little banner up there, unable to do so, and so this is a problem, isn't some code that I've written, which is nice. Actually, that belongs to, or thankful to, oh my God, excuse me. I had some Coke at lunch. Stefan Chandler Garcia wrote a Lightning web component called, what's it called? Lightning message, I can't remember what it's called, I've got it written down. Lightning message utility, right? He's written this component that basically will allow you to put up a little message that can have an icon and say some text. And in my component, I might want to have that functionality right across my org, right across another client's org, and I don't have to write that now. I can just use Steph's component in here, which you couldn't do before, right? It had to be from your own namespace. But this is someone else's managed package. So I can just call this in here, and I can throw in the arguments. This is how I want it to look. Yeah, and then I get this out. This, I think, is really exciting if you're in the business of creating things for the App Exchange. Now you can create Lightning web components that can be used right across. You don't have to just call them programmatically. You can pull them into your templates. And I think, hopefully, that's a really good thing for the App Exchange, that people can write code, have their IP locked away, but they can still be reused in this fashion. Does that make sense? I think that's really cool. The next thing. So this was, when I wrote this talk and submitted it, I was like, okay, cool, the RefreshView API is coming out. This is going to be brilliant. And it's only available in Lightning Web Security, so I can make the talk about Lightning Web Security. And then it said, no, actually, we're going to have this in Locker Service support too. I was like, oh, never mind. But we get 2 talks for the price of 1 now. We get to show you how to do this in Lightning Web Security and with Locker Service. So here it is. We've got just a simple account page, and I've got a couple of custom components on here. One that is basically just going to be a drop-down of contacts, and I can select one that's going to become a primary contact, which is just a custom field over there. There's drop-down, and then a second component, which is just going to add a new contact, and I can have a checkbox to say, oh yeah, make this the primary. So Todd, if you could add Rick Blaine in there. Who knows Rick Blaine? Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, it does make sense, even if you don't know. I'm going to add Rick Blaine in here. Oh, and this is with Locker Service. So when I add the contact, Rick Blaine's appeared over here. There was no refresh of the page, but the standard components kind of already know about this. And he's come into my contact list. But up in my custom component, I still only have 2 people we're probably quite familiar with, Sean and Rose. Rick doesn't exist in there now, which is a shame, but, you know, the standard components can do it, and I can even change in here. I can change Rick to, let's choose Sean, which is cool. And what's quite nice is my primary contact component is updated, which is to be expected, but Rick still doesn't exist in that list. So it's, the data synchronization isn't there yet. What we can do with RefreshView API is, within a component, you can say, all right, at this point in my logic, I want to fire this RefreshView refresh event out, which is, so I'm importing a refresh event, and then I'm going to dispatch it out at any point. You can do this multiple times through your code if you want. And yeah, that's all cool, but we need something to listen to that to react. So in my primary contact component, which was a little drop down, I'm basically importing a couple of things. I'm going to import a register and an unregister. And then I want to create a handler that's going to say, when a refresh event happens, I want you to do this, or when an unregistered event happens, I want you to do this thing, other thing. In my case, when my component receives a refresh event, which will be from either the standards components or my other one, I want it to say, oh yeah, cool, call this refresh apex, and update this thing I've called my wired contacts, which is basically what's in my drop-down list of contacts. And so with both my components updated now, let's add another one in Isla Lund. Is that right? Yeah, Island. Oh, you spelled it wrong. Isla Lund. There we go. We'll add her in and make her a primary contact as well. And you can see now that she's over in my related contacts, but also, and she's in my detail page as a primary contact. But my primary contact LWC has also been updated now with this extra contact. So without having to do a page refresh, I can dispatch events across them to say, you might be interested in this because I've updated some data. You might need to kind of adjust, which is brilliant, I think, really good. What's of note here is the standard components are already kind of doing this. They're already handling these events for you, as you could see. Something they can't do is, oh, not there. Something they can't do yet is if I deleted a contact from my related list, that doesn't fire a refresh event. So you're kind of halfway there. I have raised this, but I haven't had any response back yet. I guess people have been busy with Dreamforce and Windows 24 and all sorts of other things. Where did we get to? Oh, here. Okay, so that was Lightning Web Security. You saw it's like 2 lines. In Locker Service, it's the same, but a different 2 lines. To dispatch an event is the same, so you can just put that into all your components now if you want to do. I mean, obviously, don't just put it in all of them. That would be silly, but put them in where it makes sense. And so this was the code for Lightning Web Security, where I wanted to say, my component wants to handle an event and do something. That's the code in Locker Service. It's more or less identical, right? There's no extra work. You just need a slightly different arguments in there. And that will work. What's interesting, though, I guess, is if you're an ISV, who's an ISV here? Working with, everyone knows the orgs they're working on, which is cool. If you don't, then you've got to somehow say, right, if I package up my code and put it in one org, it might have Locker on, it might have Lightning Web Security. You've got to kind of handle it. There is a way to check to see if Lightning Web Security is enabled. It's quite a funny one. You basically have to request that a new worker, where is it? You have to request a new worker. That won't work in Locker. It won't work in Lightning Web Security either. But you get a different error message. So you can kind of say, if I get Lightning Web Security in my error message, then you know the Lightning Web Security on. If you get a different error, this is from the Salesforce documentation. No, I mean, at least they've told us how to do it. This is not, this is a way that you can do this. It's in the documentation. And they may well give us a wrapper around this, right? I mean, it would make, just write your own wrapper. But yeah, funny, I like that. Look, we're running out of time. Lightning Web Security, benefits and limits. Limits are, well, Aura support is, I guess, still a kind of open question. Lots of Aura is supported with Lightning Web Security. Some isn't still. My experience in terms of our managed package, or at least one of them, we have lots of Aura dotted throughout for various reasons. Don't hate me. And over time, over the releases, more and more of it has just started working, which is good. So that's wonderful. But there is that to be aware of. Distortions. So the idea that you now have access to, let's say, the clipboard API, it might be that the clipboard API, like read image, has some things in it. I mean, you can't use it exactly like you would on the web. So if you're looking at Stack Overflow and it says do this, you also need to know that it might not do exactly that. But it's still brilliant. As I said, there's implications for ISVs. You need to know what's on in your org, whether you can use these things or not. If you, for example, try and use the cross-namespace component stuff in an org that's got Locker in, then actually you'll just get a nice big error message pop up, and no one wants that. But there are huge benefits. I mean, the whole kind of ability to do kind of any kind of web RTC, having access to like an IndexedDB database for your components, or any of this component interaction is incredible. Third-party library support. Now you can drag in almost any third-party library, and it should behave as you want. And that RefreshView API, where you can like say to any component that's on the page, hey, I've updated some data, you might need to do something with that. That's really good. You don't have to do a full page reload, which we know can not be performant all of the time, which is lovely. So in summary, well, we've talked about what Lightning Web Security is, albeit, sorry if I went too quick. We talked about why you want to do it. Obviously, there's benefits. We've shown some examples of what you can now do, and also covered some of the limitations there. I think then, some resources. I even put QR codes in because I know. How about that for effort? You can just. So yeah, there's an FAQ page for LWS, which is probably a really good place to start. There's bundles of links in there. I don't know who's watched any of the Code Live series at all on YouTube. Oh my God, yeah. Well, first thing you should do, scrap the rest of this talk. Just go away and find Code Live on YouTube. Incredible amount of resources up there. They do a brilliant talk. Keep it down, Frederick, on the RefreshView API. Although it's a bit old now. There's a link to Stefan's Lightning Message Utility component too. And then you can get these slides too. Maybe not. I can share them as well. And that's it. Any questions at all? Any questions? No questions. Oh, yeah. Woo, 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 woo! Hey-oh. Woo, 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 woo. Thank you, everyone. That was lovely. Appreciate that. Yes, any questions? No questions. Okay. Oh, yes, of course. Sorry,
I think I didn't get it, but why sometimes one is active and sometimes the other is active? Yeah. Why is it?
So Locker Service was the way that Salesforce brought in security to Lightning Web Components. The standards have evolved in a way that they can now adopt a better way forwards. And so they created Lightning Web Security, which uses that. They haven't just kind of switched over from one to the other, just because things like Aura and some web components won't work if you just do a hard switch. So there's a kind of a rolling rollout of orgs. If you get a new org, so if you spin up a new Scratch by default or a new dev org, it will have LWS on by default. But not all orgs that have been around for a while have yet rolled over. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
I got two, is that okay? Okay, first one is, can you turn it on in a Scratch org?
Sorry, was the question?
Can you turn Lightning Web Security on in a Scratch org?
Yes, it will be on by default, and you can turn it off.
That's good.
You can turn it off as part of the configuration, or you go to session settings and flick it off in there as well.
Okay, the other one is with the refresh view. If you had like an imperative, okay. If you had like an imperative Apex method that was bringing back data that might have been affected by the changes that you've made, would that maybe get refired by doing that?
I guess it would. I don't know. I haven't looked in the inside that refresh Apex. I'm not entirely sure. I think. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to try it. I'll try it out on the flight home or something. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh yes, one.
So just about the general refresh view event, does it refresh all of the components in the page?
It will. The dispatch will go out, and then standard components may or may not have implemented it. I don't know how you see which ones have and which ones haven't. In terms of your custom components, you have to have registered registered that handler for you to take it in. If you've got containered components, then your container must have registered for it, but then your children can have or cannot have. So,
but for the standard components, do you think that they'll be implementing the refresh or not?
So yeah, in the case here, like the standard details, standard list, add it in terms of base components. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess not, and you do that as part of your extension of them. But yeah, it's a really good
things
question.
like the path for the opportunity, for instance, is rather frequently requested to be updated, and for that one you have to reload the page.
Sorry, which kind of
the path and opportunity, for instance.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So the
I don't know. That sounds like a really decent one to have implemented, but I don't know if they have yet. No, that's a good question. I'm hoping part of the release notes will tell us which components have got it and which ones haven't. But yeah, cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. If no more, then yeah, thank you very much for coming along. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.